Hey everyone, welcome back to Money with Mission. This is Dr. Felecia Froe, your host. I want to let you know our show is actually sponsored and supported by Money with Mission, where the vision is that every woman have the financial ability to walk away from any job or relationship that is not in her best interest. Today on the podcast, we have Dr. Toya Luces. Pretty excited about this conversation. Known her and her husband for a little bit, and she's doing some pretty amazing things out there in the world. Dr. Toya Luces-Sampson, affectionately known as Dr. Toya on social media, is a wife, mother, board certified obstetrics gynecologist, perinatal mental health specialist, and coach. She was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago. She moved to the United States, where she went on to earn both her bachelor's and medical degrees from Howard University. And get this, in an accelerated 6-year BS MD program. She completed her residency training at Pennsylvania Hospital in Philadelphia and has lived in Northern California ever since. After caring for pregnant and postpartum women as an OBGYN for more than a decade, she now focuses on the unique needs of physician moms who rarely feel supported as they navigate caring for their bodies, a new identity, and the ongoing intensity of clinical medicine. She helps physician moms set up systems, navigate complications, advocate for themselves in both personal and professional contexts so that they can feel good about themselves with confidence and joy. She spreads her message of self-love and self-care on her podcast, Stethoscopes and Strollers. Welcome to the show, Dr. Toya. Hey, Latoya, welcome to Money with Mission. I'm pretty excited to have this conversation. I told everybody already that we've known each other. I know your husband and you, and we've been just friends. And so I'm excited to have you on.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. And I'll just mention he just stepped in and it was a nice little reunion before we started recording. So that was nice.
It was. So we know you're OBGYN. We know your stethoscope and strollers. Let's talk about before you even got into medicine, because you were born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago and then came to the US. Talk about your money story. Where did you learn about money and what was that education like? And has it changed over time? I'm sure it has. And
Yeah.
where are you today?
Yeah. The education was non existent. It was nothing direct.
Yeah.
So I just had to observe my parents because they were working hard and they didn't really have the time to sit down and have conversations about money. And that's not how they were raised. But I
Right.
watched them.
Right.
Right. And it always was this generosity that I saw because my parents, they were entrepreneurs, which I think rubbed off,
Good. Yeah.
but they worked very hard from the beginning. And as the money increased, they would do more with it. So they would sponsor a lot of people to start their own businesses and do different things in their own scale, right? So it wasn't like investing hundreds of thousands because they did not have that. But it was always steeped in generosity. So that's
Mhm.
something that always stuck with me. My mom had a catering business. So she was an entrepreneur and actually left her regular job and did that for a while and then retired from everything. So it was just that observation that I had. And I didn't really know much about money after that. It was like, yeah, you work and then you get money. But I was focused on going into medical school. So we had zero education there.
Yeah.
And just like many people, I had one of those financial advisors
Mhm.
that came to talk to us in our last year. And I met with him and he seemed great. I got my disability insurance through him and he started managing my funds, quote unquote.
Mhm.
And that's how it went. And I made money because that's what money does in the stock markets. But I thought he was doing something amazing,
Uh-huh.
making me this money. And I was the one who was actually working my butt off at
Yeah.
my job at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And then I met my husband and he was like, "You have a financial advisor. Why?" And I felt very attacked at that time. And I was like, "Well, he's doing all these things. He's managing my money." And he was like, "No, he's not doing anything special. You just need to educate yourself and then you can do exactly what he's doing." And that's what I did. So I started off with the White Coat Investor, actually.
Okay.
So I started reading his blog and then I bought his book. And that has been like my foundation.
Okay.
And I'm a nerd just like many of other physicians. So I just kept reading and learning. And by osmosis, because my husband is very, very interested in money and investing and all of those things. So the education just about money and about capitalism came through my own education and then our conversations, because that's one of our favorite pastimes is to talk about money. So I learned in that way. And then through my burnout story and that journey in medicine, I then realized the another very important part of managing your money is my own value and making sure that because I now knew it and fully appreciated it, I can truly ask for what I deserve in terms of my pay and my compensation for the job that I was doing at the time it was locums.
Okay. I'm gonna go back to your mom and dad. And did you ever get the feeling that money was working for them or they were always working for money? They had to keep doing their thing. And yes, they it sounds like they got excess. And what they did with that was to invest it. I call it always investing, even if they
Yeah.
never got a dime back, they was paying it forward. Is that
Yes.
what you feel like you got from them?
I think they were working for
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got to a point where we were comfortable and I was able to enjoy the comforts of the money when we were able to renovate our house and things like that. But it
Yeah.
was never at a point where the money was just working and everybody's chilling. Nah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they and a lot of people who have money working for them don't chill, but it's a matter of I don't have to go to work. It probably felt
Yeah.
like and maybe just because that's maybe they didn't. It just felt like that's you because
Yeah.
that's what they did. They just went to work. And
Yeah.
then you met a day your husband. I hope he's not
Yeah.
mad saying your name, his name on
It's fine. I say it all the time.
and you guys started having conversations about money. And it sounds like you didn't have a fear. I know a lot of women get scared and don't wanna and they, their eyes glaze over and they don't understand and then they let their husbands take care of everything or their partner, whoever the other person is, take care of everything. What do you think it was about you or is about you that made you like, "Okay, I gotta understand this. He can't just be talking at me about this stuff or run off,
Yeah.
take care of it on his own."
Right. Definitely not. So I think it's a lot of personality. I am fiercely independent. I'm very adventurous, and that translates into how I manage my money.
Uh-huh.
And I'm, like I said, I'm a nerd. So I like to learn and I like to know what's going on. So none of those traits lend to being scared and letting somebody else do it. It's always like and, for a lot of the time, before we were married, I was making most of the money. So
Mhm.
I was very actively involved in managing it because I was making it. So even the way that we were invested and stuff is always very aggressive, and that just matches who we are.
Uh-huh.
So it just fits. And because of our relationship and how strong it is and what we enjoy, we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about money all the time. So it's something that brings us together, not something that is just like, oh no, you deal with it.
Yeah. Okay. In there's a couple ways I wanna go with this. I'm gonna talk about your kids. You guys,
Yeah.
you don't put your kids to bed and then talk about money. I've seen you guys, you
Mm.
talk about it.
Yeah.
It is a family conversation, which I think is really important.
Yes.
So they're hearing it is okay to talk about money and see what happens and how you make it and what it does for you and all those kinds of things. And a lot of people, a lot of friends that I know, women in medicine don't do that. It's not, you don't talk about it with your kids. And that's so important. Okay.
So yes, we and that is something we do it very intentionally. My son, initially there was a little bit of back and forth about how we would introduce it to him
Uh-huh.
because I tell him things cost money and he knows what a credit card is. He knows, I think he remembers how to use it and stuff. And when he asks, why can't we do XYZ? I'm like, well, no, we don't have the money for that right now. And my husband was like, well, no, don't tell him that. And I was like, well, why?
Mhm.
And he had to think about it because I think initially, and I'm talking for him at this point, there was a little bit of, well, what if he repeats that to somebody else? And in my opinion, that is irrelevant because it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about how
Yeah.
we manage our money and what our son says. But he came back and said, well, no, say it's not in the budget. And I thought that that was reasonable. So when my son says that he wants to go to China, because we have a globe, like we homeschool him, right? So he's getting a very holistic and comprehensive education. we say, well, we can't do that right now. It's not in the budget. And sometimes he will ask, like, if he's like, I want XYZ,
Mhm,
and if it's in the budget.
mhm.
So it is a conversation that is ongoing, and it will be with my daughter as well.
How old is your son?
My son is 4 and my daughter is 1.
Okay, so you guys we don't wait till they're teenagers to start
No.
having these conversations. They can get it. We started playing Cash Flow 101 with our girls when they were in 3rd grade, a little older, 3rd grade, because
Yeah.
I got it, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and we didn't play the kids game because there's a kids game.
Oh, no.
Went straight to the adult stuff, and they got it,
Yes.
and they
I
get
don't play kids games.
yeah.
Yeah, we play adult Monopoly because that's one of my favorite games. So he learned about money there as well, and I had to it's also educational for him too because at that age, he's learning about tens, ones, hundreds,
Mhm, mhm.
all of those things are educational for him and beneficial for him. And then I took him to a restaurant and he had paper money and I slipped the waitress real 20 and I was like, he's going to pay you. Can you give him real change? And he was so excited to be able to pay and get change. And like he would read the menu and see how much it costs. So it's like everything can be education and it can be fun and they can be engaged and empowered. So that's
It's
what we do.
so important, so important. The other thing you were talking about is that you started reading books, you listened to White Coat Investor, which is a podcast, you read that book. You were a physician, you're OBGYN, I'm sure there wasn't, like, a lotta extra time in your day
Yeah.
where you were not sleeping. I guess you didn't have kids yet, but,
I did
yeah, I
not.
just remember how hard it was. You put like,
Yeah.
"I need one more thing?" How did you fit
Yeah.
that into your life?
The biggest part was that I had no children at that point, and it was fun. And the thing about the White Coat Investor, I wasn't into podcasts until very, very recently. So it
Uh-huh,
was actually the blog that
okay.
I was reading, and the book was very easily digestible. It was an easy read. And I'm trying to remember what was the rest of the education. I think it was blogs and websites.
Mhm,
So it was things that you can do in bite-sized pieces.
okay,
So it wasn't overwhelming.
okay.
And everything since then, it becomes conversation with my husband and taking time to read here and there. And this idea that we don't have time is one that we have time for the things that are important, and this was important.
Yes, I 100% agree. Because people ask me, "Where do you have the time? How do" like, vacations? I get up
Yeah,
at 5 o'clock in the morning. Time is there if it's important
exactly.
to you. Exactly.
Exactly.
So you started, it sounds like right out of residency, really learning about money. You didn't wait until you were burned out to start figuring out that you needed something different.
Thank God.
Exactly. That's so important because I think, or at least it used to be, that people would go into medicine and think medicine's their thing for the rest of their life. And it's like, I'm going to start here, I'm going to finish here, and then I'm going to retire and I'm going to do my thing. It's not always the way it goes. And I
Right.
want, one of my things is that I want us as women to be able to have choices along the road. It's not start and finish. What if you decide in the middle you want to take a detour? And if you all your money's coming from 7 to 7 surgeries, seeing patients, all that stuff, you don't have time to take a detour. You got to keep going. So that's really important from my side. Talk about, so you had your son, what's his name? I forgot. Sorry.
Asani.
Asani. 4 years ago or a little more than that.
Yeah.
And is that when you've started feeling the burnout, or talk about that?
So my first burnout story was actually in residency, as I'm sure, well, I can't even imagine residency that you experience. So yeah, but it was that bad. And the point that I always remember and that's significant to me was when I was crossing the street to go to the hospital, and I was just wishing that a car would just hit me a little bit, just like a little bit, not enough to get hurt, but enough so that I would not have to go into the hospital. And I know other people have told you that. It is a very common thing, right?
Had it. I'm like, "Can I just hurt my thumb with a hammer? I
Yep.
don't want to die, just something that makes me not have to go to work." Yeah.
Yep. But I used to walk to work. So that's why it was just
Yeah.
like as I was crossing, it would be convenient. Right. And that was an encompassing picture of what residency was like for me. So when I left, I said, I'm never going to be that unhappy again. That was a choice that I could make and I was
Mhm,
going to make it.
mhm.
So when I got to my second job out of residency, It was high volume, lots of OB call. It was also understaffed.
Mm,
And my office situation was not great.
mhm,
The patient satisfaction scores, my office manager, it was just not a healthy place for me.
mhm.
So I started getting that burnout there, but I was in survival mode. And because I carried the benefits and my husband at the time was in school, it was just like, just keep pushing. So
Yeah.
we had already had my son. He was a pandemic baby.
Okay.
And during the pandemic, like a lot of people, I was like, I'm going to start a business because life is short and I'm just going to do this. And it was nothing to do with medicine. It wasn't even because of money. It was because of a passion that I had for finding products and services that are specifically for Black individuals so that we can
Okay.
feel just like somebody is catering to us and we are not
Mhm.
othered. So I started that business with the assistance of a business coach, and it was during that coaching program, the growth that I had and the realization of my true value as a physician, that's when I realized I did not have to take this situation. Because in that job, as burned out as we were, as hard as we worked, we were very, very well paid. And it's
Mhm.
like the definition of golden handcuffs
Yep.
because, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
And I'm
I,
just sure so many other women are sitting out there listening to like, "Oh my gosh."
yep,
Yeah, you're not alone. This is very widespread. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So I realized I can always make money. I am intelligent, I am highly skilled. And when we are in our medical circles, it's sometimes we forget that it's a big deal that we are physicians. It
Yes.
is a very big deal to a lot of people. So even though people were losing their jobs and there's no more security and all of these things, you still have this inherent value. And the knowledge of that was freeing, but at the same time, I was still working. And I still had this plan for we want to get pregnant with the second baby. Because of the golden handcuffs, I had the opportunity to become a partner and then have 6 months off. So
Right.
my plan was get pregnant, go off on maternity leave, and just never come back. Take my
Right.
six
Mhm.
months, and I just wouldn't come back. But that plan was like a 2 year plan, maybe because I wasn't pregnant yet. And the burnout was severe. It was escalating. It was when I started having those thoughts again.
Mm.
Like I was driving home from clinic and I said, if somebody just rear-ended me right now, it will be okay. It will be my excuse so that I don't have to go back into that clinic.
Mhm.
And I was already doing everything that I could do to get out of the office. I was doing more ORs. I was taking call. I had an admin position where I had like a half a day off, everything so I would not have to see patients and I wouldn't have to be in the office. But when I started having those thoughts, I said, Latoya, you made a promise. This is not happening again. Something has to change. And with this newfound knowledge and value in myself, I was like, yeah, I don't have to take it. So I had already been voted in as partner. I was about to pay for my shares to buy in. And I said, nope, not going to do it. And I left with maybe 2 weeks notice. I honestly don't remember. And every time I tell this story, I'm like, I should probably check because I tell this story a lot, but I have no idea. We in California where I used to work, there's no notice. So I told them I'm going on vacation. I'm going to Trinidad. If I come back, I cannot come back to this place. So I'm done.
Mhm.
And I left with no plan.
Mhm.
And I said, yeah, I'll just do locums. And so I took a month off, then started getting credentialed. So it was ended up being 4 months because of
Mhm.
the credentialing. And I started doing locums then, and I've been doing it ever since. And yeah, it's been great.
So you talked about you had a coach when you started that first business in the pandemic.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think a lot of us as physicians do not do. Like we spend our however much money we spend in our education to become a
Yeah.
physician and then don't and then spend money for CMEs, that kind of stuff, but don't think about that other kind of education or don't even
Yeah.
know about it. And when some of them, when they hear about the cost of it, it's
Yeah.
like, "I'm not spending money for that." And like, but I just to listen to you talk, I hope you guys heard how much she learned her value being with this coach. in a business situation in the job, and I know where you worked and I know that situation, but many of us are in lots of different situations where you're getting beat up, you're getting pulled down, you're getting talked down to, you're not as good as, you gotta do the I had all those things happening to me in my lots of other practices, a lot of other I was in a lot of different situations, and it's just hard, it's really hard, and having that ability or having someone back there talking to you, helping you understand that you are valuable, and being a physician is the skills we have, the transferable skills we have. Because I remember telling somebody that I wanted to do something other than medicine. I go, "What else can you do? You're a doctor. That's what you went to school for." And I was like, when I got past the fact that they said that to me, I was like, "Wow, I'm a doctor. I can do anything." I mean,
Exactly.
I can do anything and
Yeah.
figure out what it is, and you find people to help you get there. So that's really, really huge. I'm gonna ask you a question. You can answer it or not. How much did you pay for coaching?
Oh, we could I love talking about money. Yes. I paid $10,000 at that time. This was in 2021. And
Okay.
at the time, it was a huge investment for me.
Yeah.
And I went back and forth a lot, especially because when I joined, I talk about the business now. When I joined, I didn't have the business, I didn't have the idea. I actually wanted to do something else as well.
Uh-huh.
So I joined not even having a shell of what I was going to do.
Okay.
So it was a very big decision. And it was a friend of mine who had executive coaching as a part of a lawsuit that she won against her practice. That's a whole other story. She had 6 months of executive coaching, and it cost her 25K. So she
Okay.
told me, she was like, "This is a steal," because the program was 1 year and I was paying 10K.
Yeah.
That is what gave me the perspective, and because, again, of my personality, I'm massive action taker. So I was like, "Okay, your argument makes sense. I'm just gonna do it." So I did it, and here I am. Now that pales in comparison to how much I've paid since for coaching, but at the time, it was a very big
Well,
investment.
that first one is huge because you're like, and you guys, I wanted to make sure you heard that she called it an investment, not a payment. You
Mhm.
invest in yourself. You invest to learn. You're gonna get a payback, whether it's a dollar payback, an emotional lift payback, the ability to make a decision to leave something that you think about getting hit by a car so that you don't have to do it anymore. The
And
payback
I've had all of those
is
paybacks.
huge. Huge.
Yeah.
Did you have to convince a day to do it, or was he like, "Yeah, go"?
He was on board. I'm answering that way because I'm trying to remember. I don't remember it being a pushback or discussion. I just
Yeah.
don't remember exactly what he said, but it wasn't he in his mind, he was like, "This is your MBA." Because I had in my mind before, I was like, so, a little background, I don't have student loans. I came on a scholarship. I went to an HBCU, I went to Howard University,
Mhm.
and there was a BSMD program, and the undergrad scholarship extended through medical school.
Mm.
So, it enabled me to go through with a huge help. So, I didn't have any loans. So, in my
Okay.
mind, education is free. And in this fantasy that I live in. So one time I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just go back and get an MBA. And he's like, how are you going to pay for that? And it hadn't even dawned on me that school costs money. So that's like a joke between us. So at this point, that I remember that being part of the conversation. He said, okay, this is your MBA. And he was supportive.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. I think a lot of people that those spousal conversations around money can be a big
Yes.
deal. Can be a big deal. Okay,
Yeah.
so I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my
Hmm.
education to get me to understanding real estate, doing real estate, whether
Hmm.
it's direct money to pay somebody to mentor me, traveling to a bunch of different conferences and that
Yep.
kind of thing. So whenever I mention that to somebody, they're like, "Why would you do that?" Well, first of all, I
Why
lost a
wouldn't
whole
you?
bunch of money. I lost a bunch of money because I didn't do it, and
Right.
I realized the problem. There's too many things I didn't know.
Yeah.
So, learning from somebody else's mistakes is way cheaper than
Yes.
the pain of the loss we had when we lost all of our real estate investments.
Yeah.
So, you've spent lots of money, you've gotten to where you are, you're doing locums, and then you started this new thing.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Yes.
Stethoscopes and strollers, looking after the mom docs. Talk about that.
Yes.
And where did you come up with that and why?
Yes. So it actually starts off right where we stopped before. So I started locums and I got pregnant during that time.
Okay.
And my plan was to work until 36 weeks and then take time off like I had when I was working. During all of this with the business and stuff, I came out of my shell a bit and started doing online patient education, like OBGYN education on TikTok. Built a pretty decent following there. So I was doing all of these things that made me happy and I was in control because I was an entrepreneur at this point, because I
Mhm.
run my locums business like the business that it is. My daughter was very large and that pregnancy was just very, very painful. So I stopped working a lot earlier I thought, but we were able to handle it. My husband had gotten a full-time job at this point, and I was making a fair amount of money doing locums, but only doing it sporadically. Like I
Yeah.
worked like 13 shifts and made like 100 grand that first year that I started. When I had her, the pain actually intensified. I had a lot of coccyx pain, a lot of everything. Breastfeeding really hurt. And then mentally, I just was very, very angry, very
Mm.
resentful. There's a little bit of depression, a little bit of anxiety in there. I just felt like I wasn't getting the support that I needed at the time, and that everybody who was surrounding me was focused on their own story and not
Mhm.
really focusing on me and what I needed. And on the flip side, I was also pretending that everything was fine because I'm in charge now. I don't have anybody telling me what to do. So I'm just going to continue working because I've seen other entrepreneurs do it. Like my wedding planner, she
Mhm.
planned my wedding, had her baby, then continued to plan my wedding. Like I can do that. So I had all these things going on, pretending like I was fine, but I really was not. So it came to a point where I was just so angry and I just needed a break. So I had a presentation for a California organization that I was working with about maternal safety about a week in the future. I emailed them and said, sorry, I cannot make it. I sat my husband down and I said, I am going away on a trip. Y'all stay here. I need a break. And he was like, what? No. So we had been talking, quote unquote, arguing about the issues that I had been having, but I just felt like nothing was getting through. And to
Yeah.
me, that was my only option. It was
Okay.
a trip that was planned for the family because it was my birthday. But I told him, yeah, y'all stay here. I'm going to go alone. And he said, no, I'm going to go with you because if you go alone, that's it. Like, we're done. This is not happening.
Wow.
So, yeah, I know you probably don't know any of this, even though you've known
Right.
us for so long. So my sister came up from Trinidad to help my mom because my mom was here at the time. They stayed with the kids and we went on this trip alone and really talked. We tried therapy, which did not work. He printed out therapy questions on his own that we worked through and just reconnected and started to focus on the main thing.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I realized that I needed to drop all of this other stuff that was just not that important
Mhm.
and really deal with all of the pain that I was having. So I got a pelvic floor physical therapist, which was a life changing decision. I started actual therapy and working through that process and coming up for air. I, in true physician fashion, was like, I want to help people. I don't want anybody else to have to go through this. So
Mhm.
my initial idea was to create this group medical program that would fill in the gaps between postpartum care traditionally as an OBGYN versus the kind of holistic care that I thought that I needed
Mhm.
and with the community and the focus on mental health that I needed. And like many physicians, and you alluded to it a bit, this idea of coaching was foreign to me. Even though I had been in the coaching program, I came into it from a business
Yeah.
direction. I wasn't in the life coach
Yeah.
sphere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whenever I would tell people about the program, they're like, "This sounds like coaching. Is that what you're doing?" I was like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm a doctor. This is a medical program."
I'm not a coach.
Yeah. This one colleague, and this was at a retreat for the same business coaching program. So this is again talking about the return on investment from this one program that I joined 3 years ago. She was a private practice owner, and I didn't know at the time she was also a life coach. And she was like, "Well, why do you need to make it a medical program? Like, what medicine are you going to be practicing?" And I said, "Well, if there is somebody who's in the program who's in crisis, I, as an OBGYN, feel comfortable prescribing like an antidepressant, things like that, until they can get to the psychiatrist." And that was important for me because
Yeah.
I had to self manage during my own crisis. And I know that there's a gap there.
Mhm.
And she was like, "Well, is that really going to happen? Like, do you really see that happening?" And it really made me think.
Mhm.
And there were a couple other things that happened that made me realize I really just needed to drop that part of it. And it was something that was very scary because it would mean going into this very new field, even though what I would be doing at its core is the same.
Yes.
I was now saying that I was going to be coaching, which had
Yeah.
all the extra stuff that comes with that. But I finally made that decision and launched beyond the fourth trimester, which was the coaching program. And
Mhm.
then that evolved into what I'm doing now, which is coaching physician moms in the early years of motherhood, helping them thrive in medicine and motherhood without self sacrifice. So basically, in those early years when the kids are so dependent on us, still focusing on prioritizing ourselves, our happiness, our health, our money, and realizing that it will help every other aspect of our lives, including the children. So just giving support where many of us don't feel supported, getting childcare, negotiating at work, talking to our husbands, like all of the things. So that is my very long story to get to what I'm doing right now.
That was a great story. You illustrated a few things in there. The one that's really sticking out to me is that you were in the program, and it's not just the one-on-one part that gets you all the things you need, but the rest of the people in the group. It was not even your coach person that you were talking to, it's somebody else there that helped him in by just asking you questions, not telling you what to do, asking you questions that made you start thinking about it a little bit differently. And by the way, anybody who thinks coaching is dumb, you coach every day as a physician, you are coaching somebody
100%.
every day.
100%.
So that is one of the most transferable skills we have, helping people see things that they don't see.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
what I
And
love about medicine, actually. I love
yeah.
that more than anything, is just helping them see
Yeah,
it.
and that was part of why it felt so natural and why it feels so natural is
Mhm.
because I'm one of those people that would spend a half an hour counseling my patients and coaching them. That was a very valuable portion of the office. It was actually the only thing that I enjoyed from the
Yeah,
office,
me too. Me too. Me too.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, so it's helping when somebody's, you see their light bulb go off on what's happening to them and why it's happening. And it may not have anything to do with a physical thing, is
Yeah.
just the best. Cause now they can go and fix themselves. They can go
Right.
figure it out. You don't need a pill, which we can talk about that a different.
Right. And I just want to comment on the community aspect that you alluded to. That has been one of the most valuable things. And even the head of my coaching program, I don't, can I say her name?
I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's
So
hear
even Dr. Una,
it. Mhm.
the head of the the business school program, she says, I am great, but the value is in the community. And she is 100% right.
Yes.
And I have seen it year after year as I have stayed in the program. The community is so rich. And it's the same thing with motherhood.
Mm.
Your quote unquote, it takes a village. All of those things are true. And there's stereotypes and adages for a reason because there's so much value in the people that are around you doing the same thing and thinking like you.
Yes, 100%. Do you have a podcast? What do you talk about on your podcast?
Yes. So when I launched Beyond the Fourth Trimester, which evolved into Dr. Toya Coaching, I felt like I have so many things to say. I have so many opinions. Like I really want to do a podcast. And at this point, I had another coach who was my coaching mentor because it was a new thing for me.
Uh-huh.
And even though I felt very qualified from my history and pulling on all of my experiences with my burnout, with motherhood, entrepreneurship, I still wanted some guidance.
Mhm.
So I got a very skilled coaching mentor because I didn't want to go to life coach school or I actually didn't even know that place existed. I just, those certifications held no value to me.
Mhm.
I valued like excellent high quality coaching. So I experienced excellent high quality coaching. She was also a member of the Andre MD Business School. That's how I met her. Again, the community.
Ready? Yep.
So we started working together. And it was through her encouragement, I started this podcast with like 6 weeks, like from decision to launch was 6 weeks.
Nice.
And just to really display the speed at which you can move when you have that expert guidance, that would have taken me months of deliberation and figuring it out. But I was like, I want to share my opinion, share my advice, but also share my story so that other physician moms could feel a little more seen and a lot less alone. So
Yeah.
that is the major reason that I have this podcast. And it's mainly episodes of me just talking. They're very short because my listeners don't have a whole lot of time,
Yeah.
which we talked about that before. But
Yeah.
the interview episodes tend to be longer because of the conversation. As you can see, I like to talk. So, and I want people to be able to tell their stories of early motherhood. So people could really see, because that's one thing, especially in postpartum, but in motherhood in general, this idea that everybody else has it figured out except me. And I
Yeah.
am alone
Oh
in this.
gosh.
I
Yes.
can't tell anybody about it. They are going to judge me. That is not true. Our stories are so, so similar. And every time I do an interview, I realize how true that is.
Yeah. It's I remember my
Hmm.
initial when I first had my first child in
Yeah.
residency. Yeah,
Oof.
something else. That was something else. Oh my
In residency, that's all you have to say.
gosh. It was something else. We've talked so much community, community, community is just huge.
Yeah.
Massive action. When you have somebody there just walking you through it, you can move. Now, Dr. Latoya takes massive action on her own. She's like,
Yes,
let's do it. Step out there, take the risk. It's scary. It's not like there's
it
no
is.
fear. You just do it anyway. You just do it. Like
100%.
$10,000. Okay, well, I could lose it all. I'm investing this in myself and it could be worthless. And I've had people on the show said I've spent money on things that turned out to be nothing. And what you learn is that's not what you want. It's you always learn something. So
Yes.
it's really, really good. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can find me on my website. Everything is there. It's drtoyacoaching.com. So that's
Right.
DRTOYA coaching.com. And you can find my podcast, Stethoscopes and Strollers, on the website and also on every single podcast listening platform. And it is for physician moms in the early years of motherhood, but other physicians and dads should listen so that y'all know what we are going through and
Yeah.
educate yourselves.
Yeah.
And you can follow me on socials. It's at Dr. Toya Coaching. And on Facebook, it's my entire name, Latoya Luces-Sampson. And follow along. I offer private coaching. I don't know when this is going to come out, so I'm going to reveal that I'm launching a group program as well because of the value of that community. I'm going to
Yeah.
go back to my original roots of what I wanted.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are lots of things that I focus on that are a little bit unique because I'm very heavy on outsourcing and having us take the work of motherhood away so that we could enjoy the connection,
You
right?
oh, that's so huge because there's so many of us like, "My mom did it. It looks like your mom did it all by herself."
Right,
She didn't.
right. And
She
even if
didn't.
she did, she
And
was
even if
very
she did,
unhappy.
you don't have to. If you don't want to, you
Exactly.
don't have to, and that's the thing.
Exactly.
To know that, "Oh, you mean it's okay for me to hate changing a diaper? Yeah, it's okay." So
100%.
get that, talk to, go in, all those things that all those connections that she how you can
Yeah.
connect with her is gonna be in the show notes, so don't
Yeah.
check the card trying to pull over to write it all down. It's gonna be in the show notes. So, who's the ideal person? If you could just look at somebody who should be calling you tomorrow?
Yes. The physician mom who feels unsupported in some way. So you don't have proper support and childcare at home. You feel like your husband is absent and doesn't support you with these young kids. You feel like you don't have good support at work. You don't know what to ask for so that you can live your dream life. You are afraid to ask. You want to make more money, you want to make a career change. All of these things that are issues for a lot of physicians are even more complicated when you're a mom and when the kids are young, because
Mhm,
there's this idea that you cannot make big changes at this stage, and that is completely not true.
mhm.
So if you want to have the time and the energy to connect with yourself and what you actually want, and then be able to go for it, and you're a physician mom, you could contact me.
I'm gonna add that mom out there who, "This isn't what I thought it was gonna be. I'm
Yes.
not happy. I don't know what the hell is wrong here, but this isn't working." Before you step out into traffic or before you
Yeah.
just connect with
Yes.
somebody, and
Yes.
you'll get what you need. You'll get where you need to go, but just connect. You don't have to know
And
what the problem is. Just know
Thank you
something's
for saying that because there are a lot of people who are just like, "I am overwhelmed, I am drowning. I will help you come up for air."
yeah, that's oh my gosh. You mean I can really take a breath? I can just imagine. You remember, it was like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I can't even breathe. I don't even
Yeah,
know what's wrong, but I'm not doing well."
and
No,
you don't
like,
have anybody
there's
to talk to.
somebody out there who can help you sort it all out,
Yeah.
give you the ability or the okay, because sometimes we just need the okay to cry, to breathe,
Yeah.
to say, "F it, I'm done," to all those things. This is the lady. This is the lady.
I need to hire you to, do some of my marketing.
I just remember, and I think I'll
Yeah.
on your show, I just remember those
Yes.
days of when it was like, I'm gonna quit. I can't quit.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming. That's the word, overwhelming.
Yes. No, I was just saying a lot of moms go through this, but that extra added layer of being a physician and having to give so much more of yourself to patients, to your employer, is like you really have nothing left. And that's why I focus on physician moms.
And we've been so used to being the strong one, right? You're
Yes.
so used to being the one who's in control and knows what to do and all, and now you're at this broken down place, but you
Yeah.
can't admit you're broken down.
Yeah.
It's time. Thank
Yeah.
you so
Thank
much for what you
you.
do. It's amazing because we can't have all these women quitting medicine. It's a way to be able to stay in if that's really what you
Yes.
want to do. And sometimes you can't even sort that out. So having some place, the rest of the women out there with babies, or if you're, how about women who are thinking about having babies but don't think they'll be able to do it? That's another group of people
Yeah.
out there
So
that like,
that's I have talked to people who are currently pregnant. I want to talk to residents, like, because a lot of the issues that people find themselves with now, they didn't know that it would be an issue.
mm-hmm,
Like, I didn't know, especially with the partners, like, you don't know what you don't know about motherhood, especially when you go on Instagram and everybody is like, here's my pregnant belly, and I'm a trad wife, and like all this stuff. Like, you just don't know. So, like, you really just you don't know, and there's this fantasy of what pregnancy is and what postpartum is. So it's a lot of education, and that's something that I'm passionate about as well. But usually, I get people when they're in it, and it's just like crisis mode. What can we do?
yeah.
But I am a huge advocate for people having these conversations, especially with their partners, very early on, before you get married. How about that? If you choose to get married,
Y
yeah,
and if you're thinking about having a child, just
right,
start that conversation, especially if you're
yes.
girl, thank you so much. We're gonna
Yeah.
get on with our lives, our days. This was so, so good. This
Yes.
isn't a thing we talk about all the time. We talk about making money, we talk about being in medicine, and we don't talk about the woman side of that thing because we have so much more going on in our lives. So thank
Yeah.
you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Really good. Really good. Everything will be in the
Yeah.
show notes, you guys. So connect with Latoya. I think even older moms can be in the community to help mentor those younger ones to get through the
Mhm.
things they're going through. So I'm just
And
putting
not
that out
even
there.
just, you must not want to finish this podcast because let me tell you, I always say that the early years are the foundation for moving forward. So
Mhm.
I see moms with older kids that are in the same state of overwhelm that they started off in when the kids were younger. It's because there were no boundaries set. You don't just stop giving of yourself completely, you just keep giving.
Yeah,
Right? So it could be to mentor, but it also could be to make some changes so that they
I think
don't have
so.
to wait until the kids are 18 to start living their lives.
Yes, yes. But if you think it's just a mentor, you can go there for that too, and you'll get all the rest of that on top. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see
Yes.
you next week.